Hey, this is Corey from EarthQuaker Devices. Let's check out the Aqueduct. The Aqueduct is a vintage-inspired vibrato with 8 different pitch modulating modes. So what's a vibrato? Well, a vibrato is a type of modulation effect similar to chorus or tremolo. And a tremolo is amplitude or volume modulation, whereas a vibrato is wavelength or frequency modulation, which we perceive as changes in pitch. So where would you put something like this in your signal chain? Now remember, there are no hard set rules on pedal order, but typically a vibrato would lie somewhere after your dirt pedals and before time-based effects like delay and reverb. However, one of my personal favorite uses of vibrato is to put it at the very end of your signal chain, even after reverbs, to sort of emulate a warped record or tape warble. The Aqueduct has 2 parameter controls, rate, depth, and then a mode selector switch. The rate adjusts the LFO speed, which controls how quickly the pitch rises and falls. Sounds like this. Then the depth controls the LFO amplitude, adjusting the intensity of the vibrato effect or how far the pitch is swinging. So after the rate and depth controls, we have the mode selector switch, which selects between one of 8 different pitch modulating modes that govern different wave shape and envelope combinations. But it's really important to note that the wave shape and envelope have a massive impact on not only how the modulation behaves and sounds, but also how it feels to play. So the first mode on the Aqueduct is SINE. The sine wave is the smoothest and most subtle of all waveforms, and sine waves are most typically associated with classic amp-like vibrato. The next mode on the Aqueduct is triangle. Now, triangle waves have a sharper rise and fall than traditional sine waves and have a more pronounced peak at each LFO cycle. And after triangle, we have ramp. And the ramp waveform has a sharp sonar-like pulse followed by a synthesizer-like sustain and release. So the next mode we have is square. And square waves are the most sharp and abrupt of the waveforms. So rather than smoothly undulating between the pitches, square waves will actually produce an instant on or off transition between the notes. The next waveform we have is random. It's really interesting to play with the depth control here because it becomes sloppier and more randomized the higher you go. So the next few modes are really quite interesting. They're all envelope controlled. We're going to start with envelope controlled depth. So in this mode, the wave shape is set to sine, and the speed of which is adjusted by the rate control. And the depth control actually sets the sensitivity of the envelope, or the point at which the effect kicks in. So in this mode, your pick attack sets the intensity of the modulation. So the harder you dig in, the more pronounced the effect. So the next mode we have is envelope controlled rate. Now in this mode, the input level, or pick attack, will control the speed of the modulation. So play harder for faster and softer for slower. Now the last mode in the Aqueduct is called the envelope-controlled pitch. This is my favorite mode on the pedal. So in this mode, the modulation is controlled by the dynamics of your pick attack and not by the LFO like the other two modes. And this is the mode that really gives you that lo-fi sense of tape warble. So the Aqueduct is one of our pedals that really benefits from our FLEXI-SWITCHING technology, which is an intuitive feature that enables our devices to operate as both latching and momentary at all times. So in this example, I'll be using my synthesizer into the triangle wave of the Aqueduct and using the FLEXI switch to bring the effect in and out.